Welcome back to Ed's Trains. I'm going to fix the non-smoking unit in the front and repair and replace the motor in the rear unit. Well, 6 screws remove the shell. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And this section will explain how I diagnosed the problem, show you why the front unit was having an issue and how I fixed it. It turned out to be a simple fix. Hope you enjoy this. Well, there we go. I'm going to turn it around and pull the shell off, hopefully. There we go. Oop, came right off. Okay. There we go. Okay, if you look, there's a little connection, which is really nice. It makes contact in here. You don't have any plugs, which is really nice. And the wiring for the harness for the headlights and the marker lights, really good. Okay, so have this off, and here are the two fan motors. I'm going to go put this back on the track and check and double check which one is the bad one, or the the noisier one. One other tip that I was not aware of. I thought that these screws, and they really do look like Phillips screws, but there's actually a little bit of a difference. And in being on the OGR forum, there was a discussion about this new, or not new, but this alternative screwdriver to match those screws called, and this is a Hosan, I think, and I got it through Amazon, pretty cheap. You get 3 different sizes, and apparently that's what MTH uses. I remember the first time I pulled this shell off, I was trying to use I did use a Phillips, and boy, it wasn't easy. But with these, it mates perfectly. So, tip: get yourself a set of Hosans if you tend to fool around with MTH engines. Let's see if I can get the light on this. At this grate here, I put 10 or 15 drops of fluid, and it just seemed to scatter around the. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to put a flashlight on it. Yeah, so you can see that, like, screening looks cool. Really, when you see the smoke, it dissipates the smoke beautifully, separates it, but the fluid doesn't get down. And here is kind of what I think is the culprit. It ends up here, but not in, inside this shielding, but not in the smoke unit. So when the smoke starts to get, the smoke flow is reduced significantly. I'm just going to pull the shell off and drop it in, because I can't get around that screen. Okay, have it on the track. I'm going to fire it up. I probably won't hear anything because the tender where the smoke controls are is not connected. But we do have the front smoke generator. That's the one that isn't working. And the rear one is working just fine. So I'm going to turn it on to see which one is making the noise. One thing I'd like to point out, there's the BCR. That used to be a battery in that holder. I replaced it with the BCR, so that I don't have to worry about the battery running out of juice. Alright, so let me start it up. Alright. Well, there is engine noise. Okay, we'll try the whistle. Oh, it is there. I guess I'm mistaken. Okay, so, yeah, let me try the bell on it. Oh, the bell works too. Okay. So I'm going to turn the smoke units on now. And I really can't tell which one. Okay, it's the one that's working. It's actually making the noise. And I'm going to give it some power and see if the front one comes on, like it does on the line L. Nope. Okay, to recap, I wasn't getting smoke out of this unit, and there seemed to be a lot of noise from one of the units. Turned out this one is pretty noisy, this one not so much. But one of the things that I did is I looked down here, right down into the funnel of the smoke unit, and I could see that the batting was white and it looked dry to me. So I put smoke fluid directly into the reservoir. I think I put a total of 25 drops. And I turned it, and then after I let it soak for a while, I fired up the engine. Okay. I have smoke coming out of both units. So my worst fear was I'd have to replace motors. Turns out I didn't have to. All I had to do was put fluid in it. Now, I'm still thinking that this one sounds a little noisy, but I think I'm not going to worry too much about it until it actually fails. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a success, and I'm glad I didn't fool around with those smoke units without bringing it out here first. Okay, I'm going to go get the unit off the track, put it back into my cradle, and put the shell back on. Well, it's one of those things where if you are persistent and use power, you discover something. I tried this before, after I got it, to be able to pull this off, to be able to get to the fluid easier. I mean, I wouldn't have to deal with that screen. And even though the manual says put the fluid in these two, I'm just going to remove this, drop it right down in there, and I'm going to be in good shape that way. So, discover something every day. All I got to do is be persistent. Okay, I've got the unit here, and as I was moving it from my layout to the cradle, I thought, I've got these motors free and open, got the shell off, and I'm going to try a technique I saw. I think it was Eric's Trains. I'm going to pull the motors off, dab a little oil in it, put them back on and see if that quiets them down. Okay, so I pulled the fan out of the housing unit. I just used a pair of needle nose pliers, pulled it off, and down in there you can probably see the shaft. Just going to drop one little tiny bit of oil there down on the other side and then put it back out on the track and run it and see if that quiets it down. And if it does, but I still hear noise coming out of the front one, I'll do the same with the front one. Okay, well, it's on the track, powered it up, and we turn the smoke on. And it still makes noise, but it seems to be a little quieter than it was before. And as it gets going, it tends to drop in, maybe a decibel or two. So I'm going to live with that. And the front one's still working, thank God. And that one is not making noise. This one is. So there's something. Maybe the motor's dying. I don't know. I've decided, excuse me, I've decided after running this for a little while that the fan motor that I put a little drop of oil into still is making a whole lot of racket. It got a little quieter for a short period of time, and then it started to make more racket than I care. So I'm going to replace that motor and see if that turns out to actually be the problem. Okay, to take this housing off, it's really simple. These two screws come out and the housing falls and the motor falls free. So it's really pretty easy. There we go. And it's these two wires that I have to remove. And I don't think it's the fan. Well, we'll find out. Okay, I'll go find my motor and I'll be back. In order to pull the motor out, get freer access to the bottom, I need to pull the fan out. And I'm going to do that by using a pair of needle nose pliers. There, you can see it pretty clearly now. And I did this yesterday and it came off pretty easily. I'm hoping I'll have the same luck. I did. Okay. So I got the fan off, and if you look in there's a couple little screws, so I got to get those out. And then once I get that out, this housing comes out. Okay. Yep, they're both in there. So put that there. Now all I have to do is replace this motor. Yeah, one other thing I want to point out, these are DC motors. They're driven by DC. So polarity is important because you want the shaft to be turning in the right direction so it's blowing the air up and not blowing the air down. And this motor, the positive is indicated by an indentation here. This motor has a clear dot, tells you that's the positive. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen those wires up, replace them. Okay, what I did is I put a little drop of oil there, sort of preventive maintenance, and then I tested this motor to make sure it was working, and I just used a 9-volt battery. Show you in a minute. Should be able to hear it, I hope. And get it up here. So it's working, and it's just a tiny hum. Now I'm going to pull this off, desolder it. By the way, I bought this a number of years ago, Milwaukee portable soldering iron, and it's just been a godsend. It's so nice to be able to go wherever you want to go without a cord, and the kinds of soldering that we do in this hobby, this is plenty hot enough. And the beauty of Milwaukee is if something goes wrong with this, they just replace it. And I had a problem and I sent it back to them. They sent me a brand new one, so I highly recommend it, this Milwaukee brand. Okay, here we go. Tip's pretty clean, and it shouldn't take much to be able to pull this off, I hope. There we go, got that one off. Okay. Listen. It's a lot louder. And then you put it inside that chamber and it resonates. Once again, we'll compare them. This is like a whisper. Okay, well, I think I found a problem. Okay, I'm just going to tin these two terminals. Let's see. Okay, got the two ends soldered back on, so I need to put the motor in here, and I don't think it matters which way it goes in. Okay, I have the motor back in. You have to be careful about this gasket here. And now I'm going to put the fan in, and that you just press on the shaft, and you want to make sure that you check it to be sure that it spins freely, and it does, and it doesn't bind with anything. So now all I got to do is connect this back up, put it out on the track, and see how it sounds. Okay, I'm going to start it up. And I'm going to turn the smoke units on. Whoa, look at the difference in sound. There we go. Problem has been solved. Turn the smoke on, and the sound is not like it was before, and I'm pretty pleased with it. And once you actually start to get some RPMs on that motor, the humming from the fans just about dissipates, so I think it's pretty good. I can replace the other one. I've got an order in for MTH fan motors. I'll probably replace the front one too.